From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up today on AgDay, the wild winter weather continues, how it's impacting cattle weights. Another round of top-level trade talks between the U.S. and China getting underway in Washington. A look at what's at stake.
Democrats up on Capitol Hill are already saying, don't go cold turkey on us right now, Mr. President. We want a bona fide agreement that has muscle in it.
Plus, one dairy farmer caught in a contamination nightmare.
AgDay, presented by the all-new Chevy Silverado, the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever.
Good morning, I'm Betsy Gibbon. Clinton is on assignment. We are following a developing story involving a dairy producer in New Mexico forced to euthanize 4,000 cows. The story first reported in Farm Journal's Milk Business. Art Skopp is the owner of Highland Dairy in Clovis, New Mexico. We visited him in 2016 when business was great. Now he says he is forced to dump 15,000 gallons of milk each day. He's also had to let 40 employees go. That's because 7 of his 13 wells were contaminated by toxins called PFAS. The chemicals entered the groundwater at a nearby Air Force base. The chemicals are commonly used in fire-retardant foam. Skopp says he learned last summer that not only were his cows and calves impacted, but he also has 8 to 10 times the normal levels of PFAS in his bloodstream. Obviously, news like this could spark fear among consumers and other dairy farmers. We talked with Farm Journal's dairy editor about this. We asked him what producers should do.
EPA really has few guidelines or thresholds on PFAS in agriculture. However, each state has different regulations and thresholds for PFAS in well water, so it really depends on where you live. Your best bet is to go to your State Department of Natural Resources or your state health department to find out more information.
Skopp is the first dairy dealing with this, but he may not be the last. There are reports of the presence of PFAS spreading slowly to the Ogallala Aquifer. It's the largest aquifer in the nation, spanning 174,000 miles through 8 states. Air Force authorities say they are working diligently to get the issue under control. We received a statement from the National Milk Producers Federation. It says, quote, any instance of PFAS in milk would be extremely isolated as the chemical itself has been largely used on military bases. In the New Mexico case, the dairies near the base have been identified and steps taken to make sure no contaminated milk is marketed, end quote. New milk production numbers just released from the USDA show December milk production rose 0.9%, totaling 17.1 billion pounds. Production per cow averaged 1,966 pounds. That's 23 pounds above the same time last year. The number of cows totaled 8.72 million head. That's 21,000 head less than the previous December, and also down 2,000 just from last November. High-level talks about trade will get underway again today between the U.S. and China. This time, the two sides are meeting in Washington. As for what's being talked about, Farm Journal Washington correspondent Jim Wiesmeyer says the U.S. wants China to agree to keep the yuan stable. China wants the U.S. to respect its right to develop and become prosperous. Wiesmeyer saying structural changes the U.S. wants will be key, whether there's a comprehensive agreement.
Those are very complex issues that's going to have to probably be phased in anyway. And what benchmarks are you going to use to make sure China fulfills on any of their commitments, including purchases of U.S. farm products? That's what's going to be some of the guidelines that observers are going to have to use in order to determine whether or not any announced agreement is more cosmetic or if it's substantial.
President Trump on Tuesday said the discussions were going well, still suggesting he was open to pushing off the deadline to complete negotiations, saying March 1st was not a magical date.
Well, they are very complex talks. They're going very well. We're asking for everything that anybody has ever even suggested. These are not just, let's sell corn or let's do this. It's going to be selling corn, but a lot of it, a lot more than anyone thought possible.
As far as corn, a chief analyst with Shanghai JC Intelligence Company says if the talks go well, China may exceed annual quota amounts. China has also announced a plan to increase its soybean acreage and production, but the Chinese ag minister said the country will still need soybean imports. Another trade front we're watching: lawmakers with the European Union voted to start the negotiations with the U.S. earlier this week. It agreed to conditions for the negotiations. Reuters reports they're to include cars and car parts, but will not include agriculture. The talks would also be stopped if the U.S. imposed tariffs, such as on EU car imports. Steel and aluminum already face U.S. import duties, but the U.S. has a list too, including a bigger market for U.S. ag. Well, this is interesting. According to a new report produced by the Government and Accountability Office, at least $1 billion in food stamp benefits are trafficked annually. How is it done? GAO says, for example, a store might give a person $50 in exchange for $100 in benefits and keep the difference. The GAO says more needs to be done to reassess the factors used to identify stores for possible investigation. About 20 million lower-income households receive benefits from the SNAP program. The harsh storms this winter are impacting cattle carcass weights, and it may be enough to sway prices. According to USDA's latest livestock, dairy, and poultry outlook, the average steer and heifer cattle carcass weights dropped considerably in December due to the weather across cattle country. The 2019 production forecast was reduced on lighter than expected carcass weights and reduced pace of slaughter in the first half of the year.
Typically, if you looked at weather market years versus normal years, in weather market years, carcass weights drop about 3% more from the fall high to the spring low. And 3% bigger drop on a 500,000 head weekly slaughter is about 15,000 head equivalent a week.
Analysts say they still expect 2019 to be profitable.
We're sort of looking at 2019 to be kind of a sideways year to what happened in 2018. No major changes. Beef production will be slightly higher in 2019, but demand has been good to keep up with that for the last 2 years, really. And as long as that continues, then we should see 2019 in pretty good shape.
The report says the slower expected pace of fed cattle marketings and slaughter, combined with lower carcass weights, could help support higher box beef prices in the face of low winter beef demand. The wild winter weather causing problems in California. It's estimated the state has already received 18 trillion gallons of rain. To give you an idea, that's enough to fill 27 million Olympic-sized pools. Several storms hit the state last week. More than 4 inches has fallen in the Los Angeles area. San Diego has had more than 10 inches of rain just this month. That passes its average for the entire winter season. And happening right now, large areas of the country are once again dealing with winter storms. Freezing rain and ice, a big problem in areas around the St. Louis and Kansas City area. A winter storm system is also expected to bring snow and ice up the East Coast. We may have not seen the last of winter, but ag work continues behind the scenes. Meteorologist Cindy Clausen has more in today's Crop Comments.
Thanks, Betsy. Well, you know, we show pictures of beautiful cotton fields, but here's an inside look at how that cotton is processed. This photo was shared with us by Casey Kimbrell. He raises corn, cotton, and cattle in Texas. He took a tour recently of a cotton spinning mill, sharing the whole process on his Twitter page, including this cool shot where you can see the actual thread. Check out Casey's Twitter page to see the rest. Let's take a look at those wind speed forecasts as we head through the day. And it's going to be a little on the breezy side up towards the Great Lakes, especially the eastern parts of the Great Lakes, but also in the southwestern United States. You can see how the winds really pick up as we get into the afternoon. They'll die down quite a bit as we get into the overnight hours, but then tomorrow as we head through your Friday forecast, they will pick up again in the southwest in the afternoon and into parts of the Plains states as well. I'll have your national forecast coming up, but for now, here are some hometown temps.
Introducing Farm Journal TV, on demand 24/7. AgDay, Machinery Pete TV. U.S. Farm Report on your phone and tablet. Download the Farm Journal TV mobile app today.
A tough day for wheat on Tuesday. We take a closer look at the losses and why producers shouldn't panic. And later, why rangers at one national park are already looking ahead to Christmas in the country.
AgDay, brought to you by Prosaro Fungicide from Bayer.
Wheat futures extended last week's sell-off. Here's more now from the floor of the CME.
Today in the grain market, let's start with soybeans. They slipped a little bit. The futures really broke through some big support levels and sent the market really crashing through that $9 support level all the way down. Now it did, as we got to the end of the day, it did come back a little bit, but we're waiting to find out what that U.S.-China talks will do. You know, the technical numbers really offered no support. We had some follow-through selling that pushed it in, but I think that we've gotten to an area where just completely oversold, and we saw maybe a little bit of a bounce. The wheat fell again. The traders have all but kind of given up. The market has fallen much farther than we expected, down to a level that we were really surprised. Now there has been maybe a little bit of a comeback as well, because we kind of got to an area where they're just no more selling. But the inspections just show that we are unable to keep up with our forecast.
More now on the wheat market. Has it bottomed out? Tyne Morgan has more in today's analysis.
Thanks, Betsy. Yeah, here with Brian Splitt of agmarket.net. You know, when you look at this wheat market, it has been frustrating to watch the market. A few weeks ago, we had analysts that thought that the bottom was in, that we'd found the low in wheat prices. We got acreage information out that showed really low wheat acreage, thought maybe that would help prices, but prices have not reacted that way since. What is going on with wheat right now?
No, you've got a few things going on, and I think one of those is that the trade in general did think the market was primed for a rally, and a lot of the trade was positioned that way. We've seen a lot of short covering in the market, and bottom line is we just have not been getting the business. So the USDA has us projected to have higher exports than year-ago levels. We're running 10% behind year-ago levels, and we continue to miss out on tenders. We didn't even have an offer for the Egyptian tender this week. So when you look at that, we've had concerns about crops in Australia, but Argentina's been able to pick up the slack from that. So I do think that right now we're almost the last resort, and I do think that some of the overall goings-on with the trade disputes are causing other international buyers to have pause when they want to do deals with the United States right now.
But if you're a wheat producer, if you have wheat in the ground or plan to plant wheat this spring, I mean, do you panic at this point? You know, what can you do as you're watching this market just continue to trend lower?
No, I don't think you panic right now. And I think, as a matter of fact, this is a time to be patient. I think that as we see the market in general for all grains, we'll typically see some kind of move higher into the spring to early summer time frame, and that I think would be the timing that you're going to want to look for as far as marketing potential. I think once we get caught up on the commitment to trade data, I personally think that we're going to see the funds a little bit more short than what the estimates are currently. And with the 50 to 60 cent reduction in price values that we've seen in just a couple of weeks, I think we're primed for a little bit of a slingshot effect once we're done going down.
All right, Brian, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll have a check of weather right here on Ag Day.
To contact Brian Splitt at Ag Market, call 844-4AG-MARKET or visit their website at www.agmarket.net. Ag Day, brought to you by ESN Smart Nitrogen, the smartest way to reduce nitrogen losses to wet soil, hot, dry conditions, or microbial attacks in standing water. Learn more at smartnitrogen.com.
Welcome back to Ag Day with meteorologist Cindy Clausen. Cindy, it looks as if we're going to receive just a little bit more snow in the west.
A little, to say the least, especially if you are in the southwestern United States. So let's take a look. And yeah, we're going to have this low pressure system that's going to slowly move through the Four Corners states. So especially those higher elevations, we're looking at the potential for another foot or more of snow. Further east, we have a cold front that's draped through the southeastern United States, and that's going to be the focus for a fair amount of rainfall as we see it kind of moving over the same spots and over the next couple of days. So here's a look at your forecast as we put this into motion. High pressure in the Corn Belt, keeping a lot of areas dry for a couple of days, but we'll really see that wet weather, especially along the Gulf Coast states, and you see that wet weather in the southwest as well, and we're going to be seeing again a fair amount of snow. Heading into the overnight hours we go, and look at that rain really blossom in parts of the Tennessee and getting into the Ohio Valley. Snow for the Four Corners region, still fairly quiet in kind of the north central United States. But through the day on Friday, we'll continue to see that rain now spreading into the mid-Atlantic states, and we're going to start to see some snow forming in the northern plains and into the upper Midwest as well, also the Pacific Northwest, but still fairly snowy, especially for Colorado and New Mexico in those higher elevations. Let's take a look at those snowfall estimates. This is the past 24 hours. You can see a lot of that has been out in the west and in the northern parts of the Great Lakes and into the northeast. But look at the next 24 hours, especially down in the Four Corners region, as we are going to be seeing potentially another foot or more of snow, and we're going to add more of that into the upper Midwest as well towards the end of the period. Liquid rain, yeah, we're going to add a lot there as well. Look at the southeast where we really factor in another maybe 2 to 3 inches in some of these areas, especially as you get up towards Tennessee and parts of Louisiana and Mississippi as well. Temperature wise, we're going to be seeing a lot of 40s and 50s down south, a little bit cooler as you get some teens for highs in the northern plains. As we get into the overnight hours, we dip down below zero once again in parts of the northern plains and the northern high plains. Very mild overnight lows in the southeastern United States, but we're going to see some cooler air coming in to kind of the plain states as we see our temperatures really kind of take a dive in the central United States as we get into tomorrow. As far as that jet stream, you can see there's that trough. That's going to be moving to the east slowly over the next few days, and then we'll see some stormy weather moving across the northeast and some colder temperatures as well. We'll start to warm up later on next week in the west. That is a look at your national forecast. Now let's check out the weather where you live. Payson, Arizona, look for snow, very heavy tonight with high temperature around 33 degrees. Macon, Missouri, mostly sunny and warmer with a high of 41 degrees. And Water Valley, Mississippi, rain likely with a high of 54.
A look at what could drive the global beef market this year. Plus, leaders in beef weigh in on the new USMCA next.
AgDay, brought to you by Corvus Corn Herbicide from Bayer. Get an early season win against weeds with Corvus for end of season rewards. Drover's Report is brought to you by Beringer Ingelheim. They understand that when you put cattle first, it naturally leads to doing the right things.
Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue and his counterparts from Canada and Mexico are all slated to speak this morning in Washington, D.C., and they're expected to talk about the trilateral agreement between their three countries. The three are keynote speakers at the Ag Outlook Forum in Washington, D.C. Perdue has been vocal that steel and aluminum tariffs need to be lifted on our neighbors to the north and south in order to finalize the agreement. USMCA has yet to be ratified by the countries. Ag groups hope a deal can become a reality despite a divided Congress here in the U.S.
We need to make sure it moves forward so that way we continue to have access to Canada and Mexico on beef. If it's not signed, well, the NAFTA still is operating underneath it right now. But the true question is, will the president pull us out of NAFTA? And that is a possible outcome.
The Ag Outlook Forum wraps up at the end of the working week. Drovers expects the global beef market to continue to grow. According to Grand View Research, the market will show a compound annual growth rate of 3.1% over the next 6 years. It's expected to reach $385 billion by 2025. Researchers say a growing awareness of beef as a major source of protein is expected to drive increases. Beef and veal have higher protein content compared to chicken, pork, and turkey. A growing awareness, along with eating high protein foods, is gaining importance with buyers.
But even in today's markets, it's really good and we're expanding. 2018, the stats are going to show that we did, for the first time ever, more than $8 billion in U.S. beef exports overseas.
High demand from China, along with increasing disposable income, is also expected to drive up demand. It's February, so why not start thinking about Christmas? How a national park will play an important role later this year, coming up in the country.
Explore cotton production and profitability at 2 upcoming events in Lubbock, Texas on February 26th and Tifton, Georgia on February 28th. Register for free online today.
Yes, it's only February, and it seems like we just got done with the Christmas season. But already, the U.S. Forest Service is already thinking about next Christmas. It says this year's U.S. Capitol Christmas tree will be coming from northern New Mexico. They say the tree will be cut from the Carson National Forest just outside of Taos. The tree will be displayed on the Capitol's West Lawn next December. The state will also send along 70 smaller trees to go in government buildings in Washington. Along with that, forest rangers say communities across New Mexico will be invited to help make ornaments for the tree throughout the year. In fact, they'll start making the first ornaments to hang on the tree tomorrow. Well, that's all the time we have this morning. We're glad you tuned in. For all of us here at AgDay, I'm Betsy Gibbon. Have a great day.